Welcome back to the deep dive. Today we are wading into some really murky waters. And I don't mean complicated politics or dense history. I mean the murky waters of your own living room.
The hardest place to navigate sometimes.
Exactly. We're talking about a specific feeling that I think almost everyone listening has felt, but maybe hasn't, been able to put a name to.
Right.
It's that feeling when you're in a conversation with someone close to you, a partner, a parent, a close friend, and they are just incredibly smart, articulate, insightful, maybe even a little poetic.
They sound profound.
Yes, they sound profound, but you walk away from that conversation feeling confused, or worse, you feel kind of small.
And you can't point to a specific mean thing they said?
No, you can't say, hey, you lied to me there, but the ground just feels unsteady.
It's a very specific type of disorientation, isn't it? You feel less like a partner in a conversation and more like a piece on a chessboard being moved around.
Yes, that's it. You feel managed. And as we were digging into the sources for this, we actually found a name for this whole dynamic.
We did.
But I have to warn you, the term itself is a bit of a mouthful.
It is. The sources call it interpretive asymmetry.
Interpretive asymmetry. I gotta be honest, when I first saw that in the research stack, my eyes just sort of glazed over.
It does sound dry, doesn't it?
It sounds like something from a linguistics textbook, not something that happens in my kitchen.
Right. But if we unpack it, it's actually incredibly visceral. It's really about the architecture of meaning. It's about who holds the keys to reality in a relationship.
Okay, so let's get past the jargon then. What does interpretive asymmetry actually look like on a Tuesday night?
Well, to get it, we have to look at this twist in the research. Usually, we think of deep people as being wise. We put depth on a pedestal.
For sure. If someone speaks in metaphors or analyzes the subtext of a situation, we think, wow, they're really operating on another level.
Exactly. Nobody puts shallow and literal on their dating profile.
Right. We want deep partners.
But the sources here argue something pretty radical. They say that being deep or symbolic isn't always a sign of wisdom.
Okay.
In fact, when someone abandons the literal layer of communication to operate only in symbolism or hidden meanings, they aren't becoming wise. They are, in their words, creating a monster.
A monster. Wow, that is a heavy word. And just so we're clear, we aren't talking about a horror movie villain here, Rex.
Not necessarily, no. We're talking about a specific structural dynamic. The monster in this context is what the text calls an unbalanced sage.
An unbalanced sage. Okay, you're going to have to break that down for me. Because usually I think of a sage as the goal. That's the wise person on the mountain. How does a sage become a monster?
By losing their footing. The sources use this special analogy that I found incredibly helpful to picture this. Imagine a graph. You have a horizontal axis and a vertical axis.
Okay, picturing a graph. High school math class, go on.
The horizontal axis is the ground we all walk on. It's the literal facts, concrete reality. Things like, I did the dishes, or you arrived 20 minutes late.
The bank account is overdrawn by $50.
Exactly. The stuff that would hold up in court.
Yeah.
The facts.
Right.
Now, the vertical axis is the meaning of those facts. It's the interpretation, the symbolism, the whole emotional narrative.
So it's saying your lateness shows a lack of respect for my time.
Precisely. Or the dirty dishes are a symbol of how you take me for granted.
Which, I mean, to be fair, those are valid feelings. If my partner is always late, it does feel like disrespect.
It is absolutely valid. And a healthy relationship needs both axes. You need the facts, and you need to talk about the meaning. But here is where the monster comes in. The monster lives exclusively up in the clouds of the vertical.
They just float.
They float. And because they float, you can't pin them down. So let's say you confront them about being late. You say, hey, we agreed to meet at $7 and it's 7:03. That's a horizontal, factual statement.
Simple enough.
But the monster doesn't land on the horizontal with you. They stay vertical. They might say something like, why are you so obsessed with the linear imposition of time? Are you trying to stifle my spirit with your rigid schedules?
Oh, wow. Okay. I can feel my blood pressure rising just hearing that. So I'm standing there pointing at a clock, a literal thing, and they're floating 10 feet above me discussing the philosophy of time.
Exactly. And because they're floating, you can't win. You can't have a real conversation about being late if your partner is arguing about the metaphysical state of the universe. That's the disconnect. That is interpretive asymmetry.
It feels like they're just rewriting the rules of the conversation in real time.
They are. And this leads to a concept that I think is the most chilling part of this whole deep dive. The sources call it predatory fluency.
Predatory fluency, that phrase really stopped me because normally we think of fluency being good with words, being articulate as a gift. It's a good thing. How can it be predatory?
It becomes predatory when you stop grounding your speech in what's actually said or done. If I'm fluent enough, I can spin a story or a meaning that completely overrides the facts on the ground.
So it's using intelligence as a weapon.
It's using abstraction as a shield. The monster uses their fluency to create what the texts call an escape hatch.
An escape hatch. Okay, walk us through how that works in like a real fight.
So this is what the sources call weaponized ambiguity. The monster delivers the harm through the structure of what they say, the tone, the heavy symbolism, the implication.
Right. So they might imply that you're not supportive, or they'll use a metaphor that makes you feel small.
Yes, like you're just so tethered to the mundane.
Oof.
Yeah. Yeah.
Something like that. It stings.
It hurts. But here's the trap. If you challenge them on it, if you say, hey, that was hurtful, you just called me boring, what do?
They deny it.
But how do they deny it? They jump down to the literal. They retreat to the horizontal and say, I didn't say you were boring. I never used that word. You're reading into it.
Oh, that is infuriating. I didn't use those specific words.
Right. And technically, literally on that horizontal axis, they're correct. They didn't say the word boring, but the meaning, that vertical payload, was absolutely there.
So the attack happens on the vertical layer, but their defense lives on the horizontal.
Precisely. It allows for hostility without any consequence. It's like striking someone and then claiming your hand never moved.
And it just makes you feel crazy. Because you know what you heard or you know what you felt, but the facts don't back you up.
And that is the moment it transitions from just an annoying communication style to actual psychological harm. The sources are very clear. This isn't just a quirk. It is damaging.
Let's talk about that damage. Because when we read through the material, there was this recurring theme of management. There was a quote, if I don't know I'm being guided, I'm being managed.
That's a critical distinction.
Yeah.
In a healthy relationship, guidance requires consent. If I'm going to lead you somewhere or teach you something, you need to know that's what's happening.
Right. If I sign up for a class, I'm consenting to be taught.
Exactly. But when someone hides the real structure of the conversation, when they have a hidden meaning they aren't sharing, you can't consent to the interaction. You're playing a game you didn't even know you were in.
This reminds me of that fake map concept. I really like that analogy in the notes. Can we dig into that?
Yes, the fake map or the curated reality. Imagine you and I are hiking in a forest. I have the only map, but I folded it so you can only see half the terrain. I can see the cliff coming up, but you can't.
So I'm just walking along thinking everything's fine because I trust that we're sharing the same reality. I trust you'd tell me about the cliff.
Exactly. You are making decisions, where to step, how fast to walk, based on incomplete information. But I have the full picture.
That's a position of ultimate control for you.
It is. If I know about the cliff and you don't, I get to decide if we fall. In a relationship, this looks like withholding the real context. Maybe the monster is angry about something from 3 years ago, but they aren't telling you that. They're just speaking in these cold, abstract riddles today.
So I'm trying to solve the puzzle of why are you acting weird today? But the real puzzle is what happened in 2021.
You're trying to solve a puzzle with missing pieces. And the sources say this is where the management comes in. If I don't give you the pieces, I am managing your reality. I ensure you can never actually solve it, which keeps you dependent on me.
That creates dependency.
Absolutely. Because eventually you stop trusting your own eyes. You start thinking, well, I clearly don't get it. I need them to interpret reality for me. You become dependent on the monster to tell you what's real.
That is terrifyingly effective. It's like gaslighting, but with a PhD.
It is functionally indistinguishable from deception. That's what the sources say. It leads to what they call emotional destabilization. You stop asking, is my partner being fair? And you start asking, am I crazy? Am I just not smart enough to get the deep meaning?
It sounds so lonely, too.
Incredibly lonely. It's the loneliness of exclusion. When someone uses high-context language you don't understand, conversations happen around you, not with you.
Okay, I want to pause here. Because I can feel some listeners, and honestly, a part of me getting a little defensive.
How so?
Well, I'm picturing someone listening who loves their partner, and their partner is brilliant, maybe a bit eccentric, a poet or an academic, and the listener's thinking, okay, my partner does this. They talk in riddles, but they aren't malicious. They're not a monster. They're just different.
Right. They aren't waking up in the morning planning to manipulate you.
Exactly. Monster implies evil intent. What if they just genuinely think in metaphors? What if they're just bad at being literal?
This is the problem of intent, and it's the hardest pill to swallow in this whole dive. The sources tackle this head on. They argue that, from your perspective, the person on the ground, actually it doesn't matter what their intent is.
It doesn't matter. That feels harsh. Surely it matters if they mean well.
Not for your safety. Think about it this way. If a car hits you in a crosswalk, does it matter if the driver was trying to hit you or if they were just distracted by a beautiful sunset?
I still have a broken leg either way.
You still have a broken leg. The impact is the same. The sources use this phrase, intent is invisible to the outsider. You can't see inside their head. You can only look at the mechanism. And the mechanism of withholding literal truth functions like deception.
So the fact that they mean well doesn't fix the confusion or the hurt.
It doesn't fix the broken leg. And this is where the sources validate that feeling of suspicion. They say that because of this asymmetry, because they have the map and you don't, suspicion is a rational response.
It's not a moral failing to be suspicious.
Not at all. It's a rational response to an information gap. If you walk up to a locked door in your own home, it's rational to wonder what's behind it. As long as that fluency is unshared, the shadow of deception remains.
I like that. The shadow of deception, even if they aren't actually lying, the structure of the communication feels like a lie because it's hiding something.
Correct.
Okay, so we've painted a pretty bleak picture of the monster or the unbalanced sage. But we aren't saying we should all just speak in boring, dry facts, right? We want depth.
Absolutely. The goal isn't to kill the poetry. The goal is what the sources call the sage.
So how is the true sage different from the monster?
The sage represents integration. It's a disciplined balance between the layers.
What does that discipline look like in practice?
A sage can function vertically. They get the depth, the symbolism, but their speech stays accountable to shared reality. They never use interpretation to override reality. They use it to illuminate reality.
Can you give me an example? Let's go back to the late for dinner fight. How does a sage handle that?
A sage acknowledges the horizontal fact first. They say, I was 20 minutes late, I own that. They don't philosophize it away.
Okay.
But then they might invite you into the vertical. They might say, I was late and I know that hurts you. I think I've been struggling with some anxiety about leaving work and I need to figure that out.
See, that feels completely different.
It connects the dots. It uses the depth, the anxiety, to explain the fact, not to excuse it or escape it.
The monster uses depth to escape the fact. The sage uses depth to explain it.
Precisely. The sources talk about this as the difference between scaffolding and manipulation.
Scaffolding like on a construction site.
Or like teaching a child. Think about it. When you explain something to a 5-year-old, you simplify it. You don't give them the full, complex truth of an internal combustion engine. You say, the car drinks gas to go.
Right. You give them a simplified map they can handle.
But the intent is crucial. You are simplifying it to help them climb up to your level of understanding. You're building scaffolding so they can eventually see the whole engine.
Whereas the monster...
The monster hides the structure to keep you down. They withhold a map to stay in control. The sage wants to help you find the key to the locked door.
I love that distinction. It really comes down to, are they inviting you up or are they pushing you down?
And crucially, are they willing to stand on the ground with you? A true sage is never afraid of the literal truth. They can deal with the messy, concrete facts. They don't need to escape into symbolism to avoid admitting they were wrong.
That is such a powerful check. If you're in an argument and someone keeps flying up into the clouds of meaning every time you try to pin down a fact, you might be dealing with an imbalance.
You're dealing with someone who's using their intelligence as a shield, not a bridge.
So let's bring this home. We've talked about the monster, the sage, the fake map. What does this all mean for us? Why does this matter for the listener right now?
It matters because the danger isn't knowledge. Being smart isn't the problem. The danger is the imbalance. When we lose the literal, we lose the shared ground necessary for trust.
You can't build a house on a cloud.
Exactly. True wisdom. The path of the sage requires keeping the interpretive and the literal in conversation with each other. You need the ground and you need the sky.
So for the listener, I think there are two big takeaways. First, it's about protecting yourself.
Yes. Recognize when you are being managed. If you consistently feel confused, if you feel like you're navigating a map you can't see, pay attention to that feeling. Don't just assume you're not smart enough to get it.
And the second takeaway is a self-check. Because, let's be honest, listening to this, I've realized I've done this. I've definitely used "that's not what I meant" to get out of trouble.
We all have. It's so tempting to use nuance as an excuse. So we have to ask ourselves, when I use a metaphor, am I doing it to clarify things for my partner? Or am I doing it to escape the consequences of my plain speech?
Am I trying to be understood, or am I trying to be untouchable?
That is the question.
This has been, honestly, a little bit confronting, but in the best way. It changes how you hear conversations.
It really does. It makes you value plain speech a lot more.
I want to leave everyone with a final thought to mull over. We've talked a lot about translation, how the monster forces you to constantly translate their behavior.
Right.
So here's the thought. If you find yourself constantly needing to translate someone's behavior into a deeper, hidden meaning just to make sense of it, if you're always telling yourself, oh, they didn't mean it like that, they're just on a different level, ask yourself this. Are you dealing with a deep thinker? Or are you participating in your own management?
Oof. That hits hard.
True intimacy assumes a mutual orientation to the truth, both the deep truth and the literal one.
You can't have one without the other.
Thanks for diving in with us.
Thank you.
We'll catch you on the next deep dive.